Chapter 33, A Circus of Stinks. Larker and Worms left the headmistress's office even more confused than before. What was the professor doing sleeping in a drawer? How did she not know she had a false leg? And why did she keep saying "Toodle Pip" over and over again? "Do you really think she is going to tell her daughter off?" asked Larker as they made their way back down the maze of stone steps and passageways. "The professor has always been a nice lady," replied Worms. "I don't think she's in on it. She always wanted this school to help children like me so that they could behave better and eventually be sent home." So what went wrong? Everything went wrong when her daughter arrived. Squawk! Came the sound of a pelican from across the torrent. "You need to run along to your first lesson or questions will be asked. With only one boot, what if I run into Doctor or Grunt? We can launch a rescue mission for your boot at nightfall. In the meantime, you can borrow one of mine," said Worms, yanking off one of his boots. "That's very kind of you, but it's hardly a match, is it?" she said, looking down at her little brown boot and his huge Wellingtons. "It might make people more suspicious. And anyway, my stupid boot is nothing compared to my friend Spod. It's him we have to save." "He's already been turned into a giant slug. It's impossible." "Nothing is impossible," said Larker. "Let's meet again tonight at midnight." "If we must," he muttered. "We must. See you later." With that, the girl hopped down from the stone staircase. When Larker reached the bottom of the stairs, she found herself stepping onto something unfamiliar. It was only when she looked down that she realized she was standing on a rope net. In an instant, the net was whisked up in the air. "Ah!" she cried. Looking down, she saw Metal with his hands on the end of the rope. Jingle, jangle, jongle went his keys. "What have I done to deserve this?" pleaded Larker. "Think you can steal one of my keys, dear?" he said. "I don't know what you mean," she lied. "Liar!" "Lying is something I would never lie about," replied Larker. This confused the caretaker for a moment. "Where is my key to the professor's office?" "I have absolutely no idea," she replied. "Have you checked the lost property office?" Metal threw the net with the girl trapped in it over his shoulders. "Where are you taking me?" she demanded. "I don't want to be late for Gibber's Gabber. Let's take a look at the lost property office for this key, shall we? We might find something else that's lost, mightn't we?" "I don't know what you mean." "Oh, I think you do." Larker gulped in fear. Soon they reached the lost property office. Metal opened the door, and still carrying Larker and the net, he stepped into the gloom. The office absolutely stank. The school was a circus of stinks, but this was the worst. We've got whiffy vests, chewed pencils, muddy football boots, damp raincoats, old shoes, smelly socks, pongy shorts, dirty underpants, rotten apples, and a packed lunch with egg sandwiches from 20 years ago. Well, began Metal. "I don't see the professor's key anywhere. What a shame. Well, we best be going." "Don't you want to look for your missing boot?" teased Metal. From the tone of his voice, Larker could tell he'd known something all along. "What missing boot?" "What, the one that is missing from your foot?" "Oh, so it is," Larker pretended. No, I can cope perfectly well with one boot. In fact, I prefer it. Gives my sock a nice holiday." Metal chucked to himself. "Why are you laughing?" she asked. "Because I think your boot has been found." From out of the gloom of the lost property office, there came a sound. Lurker would recognize that grunt anyway. It was Grunt, and he was holding her other boot. Chapter 34, Tiny Feet Syndrome. The next thing Larker knew, she'd been lugged still in the net, but the grunt to the science laboratory. Waiting for her there was Doctor, perfectly framed by the stained glass window portrait of herself behind. Well, purred the teacher. "It seems that someone was out of their bed in the dead of the night." Tut. "It wasn't me," lied Larker. "Well, let's see, shall we? If the boot fits." "I have huge feet syndrome," cried the girl. "That boot will never ever fit." Grunt put her down on the counter. The assistant dropped the girl onto the workshop. Thump! "Ouch! My bottom!" yelled Larker. Hiss, sniggered the cat on top of Grunt's head, "and tiny feet syndrome. So even if it fits..." Before the girl could say another word, Doctor had slipped the boot on the foot with ease. "Cinderella!" cooed Doctor. It's a perfect fit. Congratulations. You shall go to the ball, or rather to detention. No, 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 she pleaded. Not detention, anything but detention. Grunt. The spiral spectacles, if you please. Huh? Said Grunt. He reached into his laboratory coat pocket and pulled out the glasses. Grunt turned a little dial on the side so the spirals spiraled and spiraled and spiraled. Whirr! Larka was mesmerized. She couldn't stop staring into the spirals as they spun and spun and spun. Whirr! To her horror, Larka could feel herself becoming zombified. Part 3. The Army of Monsters. Chapter 35. The Boogeyman. The next thing Larka knew, she was chained to a wheelie chair deep down in the secret cave. She had a terrible headache and it felt as if she'd been asleep for hours. It might already be night time. There was certainly a chill in the air. However, it was impossible to tell whether it was day or night when they were so far underground. Larka had the strangest feeling. As much as she wanted to, she couldn't cry or move, she couldn't move or cry out. It was as if she was underwater. She had been well and truly zombified. Looking up, she saw the old velvet curtains had been tossed over the semicircle of glass tanks. However, horrifying noises were coming from underneath. They had to be more monsters. Looking down, she saw that there was another poor victim strapped to a metal table. Worms. The gardener was lying motionless. The evil doctor and Grunt had zombified him too. The teacher was perusing her cabinet of curiosities. I think we need something extra special for the interfering gardener. Grunt, can you suggest something, please? Replied the assistant, and then he proceeded to root around in his nose with his finger, and he produced the biggest, greeniest, slimiest booger you ever did see. Plop! Fiend's one eye lit up with glee. Meow! Disgusting, was Doctor's verdict. I love it. We can call his monster the Boogeyman. Grunt passed the boogie to his mistress as if it were a precious diamond. Doctor took it in her thick black rubber gloves. With great care, she placed the boogie into the monstification machine. If Larka didn't do something fast, her friend Worms was about to become the Boogeyman. Now, I don't know about you, dear reader, but the thought of being turned into a giant booger does not appeal at all. You would be green for a start. Worse than being green, you would be sticky. Worse than being sticky is that you'd be smelly. There is possibly only one thing worse than being green, sticky, and smelly, being called the Boogeyman. Seeing Worms in such terrible danger gave Larka a burst of energy. It was as if there was a fight going on inside her body to overcome the state in which those spiral spectacles of grunts had put her. She summoned all of her strength and just managed to cry out, "Stop!" Dr. Grunt and Free looked around at this rude interruption. "Oh, Sleeping Beauty has finally awoken," purred Doctor. "Please don't shout, Larka. Be patient, child," hissed Doctor. "Your turn will come soon enough." "You can't do this." "Why ever not?" "Because I told your mother, the professor, everything. She's on to you." The three villains laughed with their most villainous laughs. "Ha ha! Ho ho ho! Hiss hiss hiss!" "Grunt, please fetch my mother," ordered Doctor. Grunt nodded and walked over to the corner of the cave. He opened the door to a wardrobe, and inside, to Larka's horror, was the professor. The headmistress's arms, legs, and head must have all fallen off, as they'd been stuck back onto her in all the wrong places. She must be some kind of robot. Her head was where one of her legs should be, and an arm was there where her head should be. "Toodle-pip, toodle-pip, toodle-pip," she kept saying over and over again. Irritated, Fiend the cat swiped at the headmistress with one paw. Clunk! The professor collapsed into a pile of metal pieces on the floor. Crankle, crunkle, crinkle. Chapter 36, Clockbots. "What have you done to the professor?" demanded Larka. "My mother only ever showed me love, but I always loathed her," replied Doctor. "Why? I never felt good enough for her. She rose to the giddy heights of professor, something I could never do. I was stuck at being a humble doctor forever." "Can you imagine being called Doctor your whole life?" Immediately, Larka sprang to life. This was a joke teller's dream. Doctor, I keep thinking I'm a dog. Take a seat. I can't. I'm not allowed on the furniture." Doctor, my son has swallowed my pen. What should I do? Use a pencil till I get there. Doctor, I feel like a bell. Take these pills, and if you don't help, give me a ring. That is enough, declared Doctor. I could go on like that all day. Grunt, put on your spiral spectacles. The assistant reached into his coat pocket. No, protested Larker. No more jokes. For now, at least. But tell me this. Why is your mum a robot? I was coming to that. When I was young, I was thrown out of science school for conducting my own science experiments. Experiments on creatures I conducted in the dead of the night. Mother gave me one last chance by making me the science teacher here at the cruel school. But when she found out that I was carrying out experiments on the children here, she was horrified. She said I had to leave the island immediately. So I had no choice. No choice to do what? Asked the spooked Larker. So I put on the spiral spectacles and Mother in a trance, and with the help of Grunt here, we carried her up from her bedroom to the roof of the castle. Don't tell me you, gasped Larker. We placed Mother in the cannon, then Grunt here lit the fuse and kaboom, she was blasted into the night sky. Oh no, where did she end up? Mother went into orbit. As far as I know, she always was fascinated by outer space. So I like to think that she finally got her wish to see it up close. Grunt smiled in agreement, flashing his metal teeth. That's horrendous, exclaimed Larker. It felt horrendously good, but there was a problem. You felt bad? Guessed Larker. Doctor looked puzzled at the thought. No, I felt no guilt, none whatsoever. That's reassuring. The problem was, how could I explain my mother's absence? She was the headmistress of the cruel school, after all. So using all that I'd learned from making clockwork toys as a child, just like the animal ones in the laboratory, exactly, I created a clockwork robot of my mother. I called it a clockbot. Clockbot? Genius, isn't it? A metal skeleton covered with skin made out of wax, a moving waxwork all dressed up in her clothes. I found the stuff and people were easily fooled at first until she kept falling to pieces, so I hid Mother's clockbot in a drawer. Soon after that, I perfected my clockbot and I got greedy. Greedy? Questions were still being asked, so anyone at the cruel school who got in my way suffered the same fate. Kaboom! Blasted into orbit. So all the staff here are robots, exclaimed Larker. Clockbots. Finally, someone has figured it out. So that is why I could always hear the ticking, said the girl, and why Digits had metal hand and foot. I trusted Grunt here with the fingers and toes. He miscounted. Grunt grunted in agreement. Huh? But why turn everyone to clockbots? The clockbots do my bidding with them. I have complete control of the cruel school. Why would you want that? My mother's dream was for all the children who ever were sent here to learn their lesson and be returned to their schools and homes. Goody gumdrops. When I came here as a science teacher 20 years ago, I realized that on this remote volcanic island, I was in the perfect place to conduct my dark and dangerous experiments, far away from the prying eyes of the world. Hence, I invented the masterpiece, the Monstification machine. Grunt, the curtains, please. The assistant took his place by the first tank, readying for the big reveal. He grinned proudly, showing off his metal teeth. I have been looking forward to this bit, announced Doctor, prepared to be horrified. And we will read chapter 37 next time.